Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Clinical Research Foundations training. We're just going to wait for a couple of minutes to let everyone join, and then we'll get started. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucy Palmer, and I am the Programme Manager for Research, Education and Development in the Office of Clinical Research. Today, we want to give you all an introduction to our new research training offering, which we're launching at UT Southwestern, called Clinical Research Foundations. With me today, I have several members of the Human Research Protection Programme and Office of Clinical Research, who will be available to answer any questions that you may have. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and either a team member will get back with you directly, or we will save them for discussion at the end of this presentation, where we will have an open Q&A session. Just a bit of housekeeping, this session will be recorded, so if for any reason you need to drop off the call or you have colleagues that are unable to make this presentation, there will be a link available once this session has ended for you to access the recording. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start off with, I'd like to introduce the team behind the Clinical Research Training Development. And this is a joint initiative between the UT Southwestern Human Research Protection Programme, Office of Clinical Research, and the UT Southwestern CTSA. This initiative is championed by Dr. Eric Peterson, Vice Provost and Senior Associate Dean for Clinical Research, who oversees both the Human Research Protection Programme and the Office of Clinical Research. The training curriculum was developed by Rhonda Aleppo, AVP for Human Research Administration and Director for Clinical Research Staff Training in the UT Southwestern CTSA, and Dr. Banu Papu, AVP for Clinical Research Services at the OCR. They worked with myself and Sandra Morinis, who is a clinical research educator on our team and has been instrumental in creating Clinical Research Foundations. This training would not have been possible without all the hard work which Sandra put in to create this programme, and we will be hearing from her later when she talks us through the curriculum in more detail. So let's look at what we plan to cover today. So our objectives for today is first we're going to look over the clinical research training we currently have at UT Southwestern, talk a little bit about clinical research competencies and curriculum design. Then we're going to delve into the Clinical Research Foundations curriculum itself, go through the process and training requirements, and then talk some more about next steps. But before we move on, I would just like to acknowledge again the collaborators involved in this training creation, which is the Office of Clinical Research, the UT Southwestern CTSA, and the HRPP programs. So clinical research training at UT Southwestern covers research credentialing, clinical staff education, and faculty career development. For research credentialing is to ensure individuals are responsible and trained to interact and conduct research procedures with patients. So we had a town hall about the research credentialing process back in May, as we have recently implemented a new questionnaire to help streamline this process and remove burden from study teams in getting staff credentialed. If you have any questions about the credentialing process, we have further information on the OCR website under Research Credentialing, or drop us an email and we can send you further details. We then have Clinical Research Staff Education, which is a clinical research curriculum designed to ensure that UT Southwestern clinical researchers function at the highest possible level. And this is what we're going to dive into further detail today. And then finally, we have the faculty career development, which is through the Clinical Researcher Academy, which is designed to support investigators with obtaining career awards and developing their research and leadership skills. This is an initiative also between the OCR and CTSA, and this is led by Dr. Heidi Jacobi, Associate Dean of Clinical Research Development. This involves programs for individuals who are both looking to write for their first career development award or to continue to further their research career. And we have programs that have either launched or will be launching this year. So if there are any research faculty who are interested in learning more about these initiatives, please do reach out to either myself or the OCR and we'll get you started with this. But for the purposes of today, we're going to focus on the clinical research staff education. So as we just discussed, in clinical research staff education, we're looking to design a curriculum to ensure that clinical researchers function at the highest possible level. And what we're looking to cover with our initiatives are to create a comprehensive education and training program for our clinical research staff. We want to create a clinical research handbook which contains all the tips and tricks and information about conducting your research at UT Southwestern. We want to ensure we have a standardized message for all study team members, so everyone is on the same page with how they conduct their clinical research. We want to give you more resources, templates and guidance to help support our research teams. And we want to provide those resources in one location on a centralized website. UT Southwestern is an enormous institution and there's a lot of information and sometimes it's difficult to navigate that. And we really want to help with putting this in one easy to navigate place. And with this, we hope that we're going to help improve clinical research staff morale and decrease turnover. We want to make your jobs as easy as possible so you can really enjoy doing your research here at UT Southwestern. So what does clinical research currently look like? This is just a brief snapshot of where we are with training currently at UT Southwestern, and you don't need to read these courses. Most of them, I'm sure, are very familiar to many of you. This is just to show that we have a lot of really great clinical research education at UT Southwestern, but none of these are mandatory upon point of hire. They're not based on clinical research framework or around any core competencies. They're actually often more role or subject specific, and they're not really focused on creating that foundational research understanding. And there's no centralized training plan. Each department is responsible for the training requirements of their new clinical research staff. So as we just discussed in the previous slide, we'd like to change this and to create a more comprehensive education and training program for research staff and to ensure a standardized message is in place. And we'd like to make sure that this gets to clinical research staff and gets them to a foundational level at point of hire. So to do that, we first had to have a think about what we're looking for with our curriculum. So what we want after our staff have completed our training are to have really competent, well-trained staff who can deliver high-quality research with consistency across the institution. So we started to think about what's needed to really empower staff to feel supported, trained, and able to deliver that high-quality research. And we started exploring the idea of different competencies that are needed for clinical research staff to feel confident in their role and able to conduct their research. And what we found was a team at Harvard formed a joint task force which had worldwide leaders in clinical research, and they developed a universally applicable, globally relevant competency framework for clinical research professionals. And these are the competency domains that they determined to be required for clinical research professionals. So we have scientific concepts and basic research design, ethical and participant safety considerations, medicine development and regulation, clinical trial operations, study and site management, data management and informatics, leadership and professionalism, and communication and teamwork. So these were the domains that they determined to be important for the development of clinical research professionals. And then they essentially created a framework around these domains and competencies to help clinical research professionals with their career development. So let's just take a little closer look at what is involved in this competency framework. So this is just to show you in a little more detail what is within each area. So within each domain, there are several competencies which are required within the framework for clinical research professionals. And these objectives are then broken down further into fundamental, skilled, and advanced levels. So here you can see we've got the domain for scientific concepts and research design. And within that domain, there are several competency objectives, including applying the principles of biomedical science or identifying scientific questions. And then these objectives are then broken down into fundamental, skilled, and advanced levels. So here with like the small aeroplane, you can see that you need to recognize the need to apply principles or articulate the purpose. With our JET, we have applying scientific principles or identifying the research hypothesis, so that's the skilled level. And then we have the rocket for the advanced level of planning biomedical research or developing the protocol or source documentation. So just to show you what this looks like within the framework itself, we have that fundamental, that skilled, and that advanced level. And within those levels of competency, we've got kind of the foundational clinical research training at the fundamental level, which is what is needed at point of hire. You then have the skilled clinical research training for the development of clinical research professionals and role-specific skills or requirements. And then we have the advanced clinical research training for development of senior clinical research professionals. And so for our clinical research foundations training curriculum, we focused on developing training which covers all of the foundational levels of these competencies. And I would really encourage you to look over the competency framework if you are interested and you have some time. It is a really fascinating look into the knowledge and skills that are essential for clinical research, and also a really great resource for career development ideas for clinical research personnel. It's a really interesting read. And we'll have links to the Joint Task Force website and their publications as part of this training and on our website if you're interested. So this is just the background and the structure of how we design the curriculum. Sandra is now going to take a deeper dive into what is included in the curriculum itself. So I'll hand over to Sandra.
Thank you for that excellent introduction, Lucy. I will now review the curriculum that supports this Clinical Research Foundations training. So as Lucy mentioned, this training covers core competencies for clinical researchers that have been identified by a joint task force established by Harvard. Therefore, the mission of this training is to provide a comprehensive education to all clinical research personnel at point of hire and establish a consistent foundational understanding. In terms of action items, this mission means that training will be assigned at point of hire to all new clinical research staff. The training is designed to cover core competencies, and it will be hosted within the city website for ease of access to both UT Southwestern staff and its affiliates. Also, it should be clarified that this training does not intend to replace existing department training. If there is anything department specific that is required for its staff, each department has the latitude to assign additional courses and training as needed. We will now discuss the curriculum in more depth. First, the curriculum will contain a video series that covers the basic scientific principles of clinical research. In this video series, Dr. Heidi Jacoby from the Department of Dermatology discusses the principles, key concepts, and methodology behind research study design. Due to the length of Dr. Jacoby's presentation, the recording was spliced into 4 units with an average of 30 minutes each in running time. Second, the curriculum contains a video series, Introduction to Clinical Research at UT Southwestern Medical Center and Affiliates. This video series, which includes an introduction by Dr. Peterson as well as Dr. Toto, followed by over 30 individual speakers, introduces new clinical research staff to the many departments, offices, committees, and groups that support clinical research operations at UT Southwestern. This recording was split into 5 separate units and averaged 25 minutes each. The last part of the curriculum is the new Clinical Research Foundations course offered through the city website. In this course, learners will review 18 individual modules that cover the core competencies discussed earlier. The 2 videos that were just discussed will also be housed on the city website so that new staff will access all the Clinical Research Foundations training on one platform instead of jumping between city and Taleo. The training on city will be self-paced, and we anticipate that the time for completion for the city modules, as well as the 2 included video series, will be somewhere between 8 to 12 hours, depending on how long it takes you to review the combined materials on city. More importantly, once you complete this city course, you will not be required to take it again. It is a one and done course. Finally, All staff, both current as well as new, will have access to a new clinical research handbook, a 270+ page document that covers many topics, including basic concepts in clinical research, down to the granular levels, such as the infrastructure of departments that support clinical research operations. There is even a handy FAQ section with contributions from several departments who are frequently contacted by clinical research staff. This clinical research handbook is intended to accompany and complement the above recordings and to serve as an additional resource for all current and new staff. So to recap, the 3 components of the Foundations course consist of the Scientific Principles video series, the Introduction to Clinical Research at UT Southwestern Medical Center and Affiliates video series, and the required city modules. Also mentioned, all staff will also have access to the Clinical Research Handbook. Combined, these items cover all of the core competencies identified by the Joint Task Force for Clinical Trial Competence at Harvard. On the next 2 slides, we wanted to give you a glimpse into the topic areas covered by this Clinical Research Foundations course. As you can see, the video segments for both series average anywhere from 20 to 35 minutes in length, which gives the learners time to stop the training at any time, perform other tasks, and return as needed. On this slide, the individual course modules covered through the city program are broken out into more detail, showing the topic areas addressed, as well as the individual competency domains that are covered by each module. The purpose is not to try and make you read this word for word, but instead we wanted to convey the breadth of information that is covered through this one Clinical Research Foundations course.
Thanks so much, Sandra, for that insight into the Clinical Research Foundations curriculum. So I wanted to take some time now to go over accessing this training and the process of assignment to new hire as part of the UT Southwestern onboarding process. So this is going to be a mandatory onboarding training. It's going to be assigned at point of hire to all new clinical research staff, and there will be a requirement for completion within 30 days of receipt of the OCR onboarding email. So new clinical research staff who are hired into these job codes in this table will receive an email. And in this email, they will get the details for their course selection on the city website, how to basically sign up for the course. We're going to have tip sheets for that and show how to get the correct course set up in city for you. There's going to be links to our website for support and FAQs. A link to the Clinical Researcher Handbook that Sandra was talking about as well for further detail. And we will, of course, be CCing all the managers on this correspondence so that managers can also see everything that their staff are receiving about this new training. So what everybody has been waiting for, when is this going to go into effect? So this is going to go into effect for individuals starting in these clinical research job codes. The training is going to be assigned from July 10th. And we're in the process of finalizing the last pieces as we speak. So it's a very exciting time. So I just want to take a moment just to focus again on those training requirements and dive a little deeper into what the expectations are for training completion. So we're asking individuals to complete the training within 30 days of receipt of the OCR onboarding email. So in order to access this training, your new research staff must have a City account. So make sure that they get signed up to City in order to get this training. If staff do not sign up for the training within 10 business days of onboarding, the OCR will assign the training within the City software themselves, and an email indicating this assignment had to be made will be sent to the employee and the manager. And for individuals who have not completed their training within 30 days of the onboarding email, they may have their research activities limited until the training has been completed. So please contact us if there is any reason why it will not be completed by this deadline. We're here to work with you, but it is important that this training is completed. So please do keep us in the loop if something's going on. And the ultimate plan is to include the completion of the Clinical Research Foundations training as part of the research credentialing onboarding process for new staff. So individuals will not receive their credentialing sign-off until the Foundations training has been completed. Now, this has not been finalised yet, so this will not be implemented for those individuals who will be assigned the training from July 10th. So don't worry, this isn't something that's happening right now. But this is the direction that we're going to be going in. So I wanted to make you aware so that you can build this into your timeline and think about how this could affect the way that you go about your research credentialing. We will, of course, follow up with you all with further details once this process has been finalised, but I just wanted to put it here as something for you to think about. Okay, so that's the process for accessing the Clinical Research Foundations training material for newly starting clinical research staff as part of the onboarding process. But what about for existing staff who may wish to take the training or view the videos to learn more about resources at UT Southwestern? So the first thing to say is anyone can take the Clinical Research Training Foundations in the City platform. We really encourage departments to assign this training to all individuals involved in clinical research, including those in job titles that are not on the list. So we obviously have that list of individuals in clinical research job titles. However, we're very aware that there are a lot of people who touch clinical research who perhaps don't necessarily have one of those clinical research job titles. And we would really encourage you to utilise this training for those individuals too, as it really gives that foundational understanding which people need in order to do clinical research. We would also encourage research staff who have recently started at UT Southwestern to complete the training. So you might not quite make that July 10th cutoff, but if you started UT Southwestern over the past few months and you want to learn more about the institution and also get that foundational kind of understanding, this is where you can do the research training. We think it's really beneficial and we would really encourage you to do that. And the training is available through the City platform for ease of access to Parkland, Children's, THR and other affiliates. So we wanted to make sure that this training is easily accessible for our affiliate sites so that they can also utilise it as part of their training. Okay, but what happens, if you've already done a little bit of clinical research, you've kind of got that background, but actually you are kind of more interested about not taking it so much as onboarding. You might not need to do the City modules, but you would just like to look at that content. You'd like to learn some more about the different offices at UT Southwestern or about some of the processes that are covered through the training. What we've done is we've put the Clinical Research Foundations content on our website for quick access. So all of the training videos are going to be available online for established research staff who may wish to view these, but without having to go through City for the training. You might not want to do those City modules, but you might just want to be able to look at the training videos. These videos are a resource to learn about institutional resources, committees, and offices that are involved in clinical research at UT Southwestern. And of course, we have the Clinical Research Handbook, which is also going to be available through the website for further details about all of the departments, committees, offices, and resources. So we're in the process of finalising our Clinical Research Foundations website at the moment, but I just wanted to give you all a sneak peek. It's not quite finished, so it will end up looking a little bit tidier than this, but this is just to give you an idea of all the resources that are going to be on offer. So we will host the training videos on the website, so you can see these are all the different things that are kind of be covered. This is just a little snapshot, but this is all the different stuff that Sandra just showed you in the table of everything that's covered through our videos. All of these presentations will be hosted on the UT Southwestern Vimeo channel with links to each chapter. So if you're interested in, a new department or a new committee, which you haven't had to work with before because you're doing a different kind of study or a different kind of research, you can go and find that on the list. You can immediately navigate to the chapter in the video that is specifically about that thing you want to learn about. You'll be able to watch the video. We'll have the slides, which will have active links for all of the resources, and you'll be able to get that background knowledge. The Clinical Researcher Handbook is also going to be available to all through the website. So this website is going to be an amazing resource for any clinical researcher who may wish to learn more about any or all of the departments involved in research at UT Southwestern. You're going to be able to jump straight to the recordings, there'll be slides, they'll have active links for you to go through, and then the handbook has like deeper information in addition to what's on the presentations. And it also is searchable and it has live links, websites and contact details. So there's a lot of information here, which we really hope is going to help you with your research here. So before we move on, I would just like to acknowledge again all the different departments who worked with us to bring this training together. We've had over 30 different departments at UT Southwestern contribute to this training, and we're really grateful for everyone who got involved to create such a robust curriculum. So next steps for the Clinical Research Foundations training. Clinical Research Foundations will be assigned at point of hire to the individuals in those research job titles from July 10th. Individuals assigned the training will receive an email from OCR CC'd to their manager with guidance on how to move forward. We're finalising our website, and that's going to be available for both new hires and existing researchers. It will contain all the training videos and good stuff that I just showed you, and this will also be available from July 10th. And what we're going to do after this meeting is send out a curriculum outline to all clinical research managers to share with your departments, to allow review of the Foundations curriculum. We know there's been a lot of information on these slides and you're going to want to look at it in a bit more detail and digest it. And then this, we're hoping, will allow you to determine how best to fit this new training into your current department onboarding procedures. So I just wanted to take the last few minutes of the presentation to talk a little bit more about upcoming plans that we have for future clinical research training, and some ways that you, as members of the clinical research community, can get involved if this is something you are interested in. So in terms of onboarding resources and training, we have created an onboarding checklist, which will help researchers navigate all the different trainings and requirements needed for clinical researchers new to UT Southwestern. I know a lot of departments have their own versions of this, but we felt it was important to have a centralized institutional resource which departments can access and then add to with their own requirements if needed. Again, this checklist is not designed to replace department-specific training, rather to help standardize what is required at an institutional level, and then departments can add to it as needed. So this checklist is going to be available on the OCR and Clinical Research Foundations training websites, and it will also be included as part of the onboarding emails to new clinical research personnel to help navigate research at UT Southwestern. We're also continuing to update the OCR website. So you will have seen some changes in the website over the last 6 months, and we're continuing to update both the website and the SharePoint to centralize all of our information and to provide more resources to the research community. So we're working on redesign as well for this in the future, but we'll let you know when that happens. At the moment, we're kind of just really focusing on getting that updated and making sure you have all the information that you need. We're also growing our collaboration with ambulatory education services. So with the need for more skill checkups for vitals, EKG, phlebotomy, the HeartSaver and BLS life support, and the new OR training, we're working more with ambulatory services to strengthen ties and to help give the research community greater clarity on these requirements. We're also continually working to get more availability for life support classes. I know a lot of you have reached out about this, and we're really working to try and get more available for you to sign up for. And we're going to continue to work with ambulatory education to develop these resources. And then the final piece we're working on for onboarding is what we're calling the Scope of Practice questionnaire. So this is a REDCap survey which will ask more about the role-specific training that may be required for individuals. And this is kind of going to go hand in hand with the checklist. And then this will help cover, like PHI, HRPP training, anything from SPA, OCR, your ambulatory skills. And depending on what you answer in the REDCap questionnaire as the different things you are going to be doing in your role, it is essentially going to create a bespoke list of all the training required for each individual. So the plan is going to be to get the managers involved in completing these questionnaires, to help inform role-specific training needs at point of hire, and also to help the OCR and departments ensure that newly hired individuals have all the required training prior to starting work with research participants. So the scope of practice questionnaire is currently under development, and it's our next kind of thing once this foundations training rolls out. So we're hopeful to have this to you in the fall to support your researcher onboarding. So the other piece of training which we want to turn our attention to is the career development training for researchers at UT Southwestern. So we're looking to create a mentoring scheme and community for clinical research staff. We'll be setting up a Teams channel for researchers to make a space to share tips and tricks and to create a sense of community. We're also looking for mentors. As new clinical research personnel come on board, it's invaluable to have that more experienced clinical researcher who can help guide you through the research at UT Southwestern. And what are the next career development steps, and where do I go to find things? You know, having that source of support. I know that some departments already have something similar to this set up, but a lot of researchers at UT Southwestern have indicated that they would really benefit from an initiative such as this. So this is something that we're working on over the coming months. We are also looking to create a clinical research staff focus group to determine the areas of need for training at UT Southwestern. We want researchers to have a voice in what training offerings and initiatives we focus on going forward, and getting direct input from the research community is going to be really helpful in identifying gaps in training and need. And then this is going to lead to the creation of more career development courses for clinical researchers. So going back to our core competency framework, we want to focus on those skilled and advanced levels that we saw from the Joint Task Force. And now we've created that foundational course. What are the next steps? What training do our researchers want to fulfill the skilled and advanced levels? And what would be most helpful to the career development of our clinical research workforce? So that's our kind of focus with our trainings coming up. But what we are looking for from you, if you would like to get involved, is we're looking for volunteers who would like to be mentors for new clinical research personnel. We're looking for individuals who might like to volunteer to be part of our focus group. And most of all, we're looking for feedback. We want to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you think about training. We'd love to hear what you think about this new training once it's been rolled out. We'd love to hear about gaps or things you think would be helpful, because we really want to make sure that what we are doing is going to be really helpful for you as the research community. So with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your attention on behalf of the Office of Clinical Research, Human Research Protection Programme and the CTSA. We appreciate you being here with us today to learn more about the new Clinical Research Foundations. So now we're going to open up the floor for a Q&A session. So please feel free to put any questions that you may have in the chat.
Hi, Lucy. So if you like, I can read the questions aloud to you if you'd like to go ahead and respond.
That would be fantastic. Thanks, Sandra.
Okay. So let me scooch over there. So the first question is, I know all new staff will automatically be enrolled, but will all existing staff also be required to complete this training so that we have documentation for core competencies?
So that is an excellent question. So we are not going to require existing staff to take this training. We understand that that would be a lot to ask individuals. So this is something that we are only going to require for newly hired staff from the 10th of July. What I would say though is this training is really helpful. I've learned so much putting this together, and I've been in clinical research for like a while. And so I think that even if you are an experienced clinical researcher, there's definitely something to be gained from this training. So I would really encourage you to look at it. You might not want to do all the city modules. You may have already done some of the city modules. So you might want to look at it through the website. And that's why we've hosted it in these two places. There's the full curriculum in the city website. And then we also have the kind of training videos, the more UT Southwestern specific pieces on our Clinical Research Foundations website. So you're able to access both bits of training if it is something you're interested in. But no, we won't be requiring that for everyone else. However, we would really encourage you to take a look, because we think it's really useful, and we hope it's going to be helpful for everybody.
Thank you. The next question is it possible to add more research-related job codes for the mandatory training?
So I think that is definitely a possibility in the future. That's something that we would need to discuss with leadership to determine, exactly which codes you're talking about. If that's something that you would like to perhaps contact us directly about with job codes that you think would be appropriate, then that's something that we could definitely discuss. We're just focusing on those job codes now, though, for the July 10th rollout. And again, as we said, you are more than welcome to assign this to individuals in any job code as a departmental requirement. So we're requiring it for that list of job titles. However, how you would like to actually administer that within your own department and the training requirements you want to set within your own group are totally up to you. And of course, from our point of view, the more people that do it, the better. Absolutely.
Great. The next question is, will there be a differentiation in the training requirement for individuals who are newly promoted? For instance, I was a CRC 1 and now a CRC level 2 versus individuals who are transferring from non-research job codes into a research job code or new to the institution?
So that is an excellent question. And yes, so if you are transferring from an existing research job code due to, you're getting a promotion or something like that, you will not be required to take the training because you're already considered the same as like an existing clinical research personnel. The requirement to take this training will be for new hires to the institution or for individuals who are transferring from a non-research related job code to a research related job code.
Okay, great. The next question is, what about interns and medical students?
So if they are not in a research related job code, we're not mandating the requirement for them to do this. However, again, I return to kind of the statement I made earlier is that we would really encourage anyone who touches clinical research to do this training. And we are going to meet with the officers. We can plan to meet with the medical student office. We can show everyone the training that we have. But again, it's going to be the departmental decision about whether this is something that they mandate or not. However, if you have a lot of interns or medical students working in your group, I would suggest that you include this as part of your general onboarding training for them because it's going to be really beneficial in giving them that foundational understanding. However, that would be a departmental call and not, an institutional decision.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what staff research training tasks are not being centralized through CITI?
I'm not sure I quite understand that question. Sandra, could we please just clarify exactly what we're asking with that one?
Yes, I think we should get more information from
Could we get a little bit more clarification on that one? Because I'd love to answer it. I mean, there are other research training requirements at UT Southwestern, which are, through Taleo. So, if you're doing your EPIC, perhaps this is what we're asking, the EPIC training or, the Velos training is through Taleo. There are other training requirements for different roles within clinical research staff members through Taleo. So not everything is hosted in CITI. We made the decision to host this training in CITI because we wanted to make sure that it was easily accessible for everyone at UT Southwestern and all of our affiliates. So that's why we have hosted this training in CITI. But there is a lot of UT Southwestern specific training that's hosted in Taleo, and that is covered in the clinical researcher onboarding checklist. So we put that together in that document so that individuals could basically pick which ones are relevant to their role. Does that answer the question?
That was helpful. We'll see if they contribute more.
Let us know. Yes. Let us know if that didn't hit the mark.
The next question is, for current supervisors who get promoted into those job codes, will training be mandatory?
So again, it depends if you are coming from a research-related job code or not. If you are coming from a research-related job code already, then no, you will not be required to do the training. However, if you're transitioning from a non-research-related job code into a research-related job code, then yes, you will need to do the training.
Okay, the next question is, will you also please copy the department administrators when you send information to the clinical research managers?
Yes. For the curriculum, absolutely, yes. Sorry, I should have put that in the slides. Absolutely.
Great. Next, what office is responsible for updating and maintaining the onboarding checklist?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So this training is going to be in general, updated and maintained by the Office of Clinical Research. It has been a collaborative kind of endeavour with the Human Research Protection Programme and CTSA, and they will still remain very heavily involved in this. However, it ultimately will be administered through the Office of Clinical Research.
Okay. The next one is this new training system also being used for continuing education or recurring or other regularly updated research training and credentialing?
So I am assuming that in this question we're talking about the use of City for training. And I mean, a lot of the courses already which are used in clinical research training at UT Southwestern are hosted in Taleo. I know this is something that we are kind of visiting in terms of making sure that everything that we have is very accessible. And for sure, when we go on to review the next stages, our skilled and advanced curriculum offerings, we will consider what platforms we want to hold those in, because we want to make sure that everything is as accessible as possible. But for now, the City training, the City platform is currently only housing the regulatory training through the Human Research Protection Programme, and they have a lot of really great courses in there which you can do from a regulatory perspective, and then our Clinical Research Foundations curriculum. All other training is currently hosted through the Taleo platform.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, will this training be mandatory for non-UT Southwestern employees who are classified as contingent workers through collaborating affiliate sites?
So I am not 100% sure on the answer to this one. I don't know, Rhonda, whether you have any thoughts on this or whether we need to take this one back to discuss.
I don't think at this time that they would show up in your list as being mandatory for these individuals.
Yep. But what we would encourage is, because this training is accessible to everyone, which is why we wanted to host it through City, that if the affiliate sites wanted to make it part of their onboarding procedures, then they can.
Great, thank you. The next question is, will researchers still have to complete City HSP and GCP every 3 years?
So I'm going to turn this one over to Rhonda as well, because I don't want to speak on this on behalf of HRPP.
Yeah, sorry, I was typing an answer to the last question. Yeah, so the requirements for HSP and GCP are IRB requirements and NIH requirements. And so those courses will need to be completed once every 3 years. The 3-year time frame is actually a requirement by NIH. But I will tell you that in light of this additional City training, we are actually looking at scaling back some of the modules that are required for the HSP and GCP training, both the basic and refresher courses, so that we don't have sort of an over training an overwhelming amount of training in City that's required.
Great, thank you both. The next question is this training required for faculty, not just staff?
So currently this training is only required for individuals in those research-related job titles. So no, it's not required for faculty. However, we feel that this training is really beneficial, especially the videos which are specific to UT Southwestern about conducting your research at UT Southwestern. And so we are going to really encourage faculty and individuals who are working in research across the whole of the institution to view this training, because we feel there's something there for everyone really to learn about research at UT Southwestern. So it will not be mandatory, but it's definitely something that we're going to be sharing with faculty. We're going to draw their attention to it, and hopefully this will be something that they also start using to learn more about these things at UT Southwestern. So I think it's really useful across a broad spectrum of individuals.
Thank you. The next question is, could you repeat where we can apply for mentorship? Go
Oh,
ahead.
great. Yay. Yes, absolutely. Just drop us an email, ocr@utsouthwestern.edu. Anyone who is interested in potentially being a mentor, being part of a focus group, or maybe you just have a little bit of feedback either about the current educational offerings at UT Southwestern, or maybe once you've taken some of our education and you'd like to give us some thoughts, please always drop us an email at the OCR inbox.
Great. The next question is, we have a new coordinator starting July the 5th. I know she will not be automatically enrolled, but can she still participate?
100%. Yes, please. We would love her to participate. So when the training goes live on July 10th, basically, if you go into the city website, and there's going to be a tip sheet that tells you this, but if you go into the city website, in the same way that you answer those initial questions at the start to assign yourself the GCP, the HSP, the kind of IRB training that Rhonda was speaking about earlier, there will be a question which says, you know, are you going to be working as a clinical research personnel, like a clinical research coordinator, clinical research assistant, something like that? It's question number 4, and there's a tip sheet that's going to give you the exact wording. And if you click yes to that question, then you will automatically get assigned the Clinical Research Foundations training through City. It will all show up in your City portal. So once your individual is on board on the 5th of July, you're just going to have to wait till the training comes out on the 10th, and then you can just ask them to assign themselves the training in City, and they can just take the training.
Great. This next one is kind of a 2-part question. The first part is, will this be 30 calendar days for the training requirement? So I believe they're just clarifying that part. And then the second is, will there be any consideration for allowing UT Southwestern education funds to be used for training to become certified research professionals? Currently, funds can only be used for degree programs.
Okay, so for the first part of the question, yes, it will be 30 calendar days. And again, you know, if there is an issue, if you feel that there's going to be a problem with completing the training within that time frame, we'd encourage you to reach out to us. We want to try and work with you, but we also want to make sure that our clinical researchers are trained and ready to go kind of, you know, pretty quickly when they come on the institution. So we are requiring that 30 days. In terms of your second question, I know that we are definitely considering different options of accreditation and certification for clinical research personnel. So that is under discussion with leadership. So hopefully we'll have an update for you on that in kind of the future.
Great, thank you. This is a question from Dr. Karp, and he says, I may have missed this, but is there training on negotiating budgets with sponsors, evaluating clinical trial agreements, and working with e-agreements?
So thank you. This is a great question. So to answer the question for the budgets and the negotiated the budgets and sorry, what was the second thing, Sandra?
Let me go back and look at that very quick.
Sorry, apologies.
No, it's okay. There was negotiating budgets with sponsors, evaluating clinical trial agreements, and working with e-agreements.
CTAs, that's what it was. Okay, so for the budgets and the clinical trial agreements, but information about both of these is covered in the City modules associated with this training. So there's information about that in there at a fundamental kind of foundational level. For the next step up, which would be, you know, kind of learning about the e-agreements, learning a little bit more about those, that would be what we consider the skilled clinical research competencies. And this is where there's the more role-specific training which exists within Taleo. So there's training through the SPA department, which is more about using e-agreements, you know, creating those budgets, putting those together. So that doesn't form part of this curriculum. However, that training is there and it is available. This is the kind of training that we want to be able to direct individuals to through the scope of practice questionnaire. The way we've put together the foundational training is so that it's relevant to anybody who comes on in a clinical research job description. However, those are some more role-specific requirements, and so that's where the scope of practice questionnaire will come in, which will tell you the trainings you need to build upon this foundational training, which is specific to your role. And so it may be informed consent, it may be negotiating budgets, it may be cling cards or phlebotomy. It really depends on what is in your role. And so that's the next piece that we're going to do, is to come up with that kind of role specific training menu, which is going to help direct individuals to where that is at UT Southwestern.
Great, thank you, Lucy. The next question is, I have an additional question related to taking paper to practice. In addition to having a research mentor, it would be incredibly beneficial for new research staff to shadow clinic staff for a period of time to understand processes such as scheduling and epic use. They will also need to see how their use of these resources will differ from traditional clinic staff. This is something you do not learn in existing training.
So that's fantastic feedback. Thank you so much. This is exactly the feedback that we're looking for. So that's something that we will definitely take on board and start thinking about, while we're creating that community, creating that mentoring, whether we should start thinking about integrating a shadowing piece into that. And so this is why we really want to get that input from all of you about what you think would be really beneficial, especially if you've done it for a while and you're looking back and think, when I started, or when this would have been really helpful if I knew this from the start. So please do keep providing feedback like that. Thank you.
You did briefly touch upon this previously, Lucy, but someone else did ask, how do I sign up to participate in the research committee and the research focus group?
Okay, fantastic. So just drop us an email at ocr@utsouthwestern.edu, or you can email me directly, lucy.palmer@utsouthwestern.edu. Just drop us an email. We don't have a formal sign up at the moment. We just love to hear from individuals who are interested. And then this is an initiative that we're really going to start focusing on over the summer and into the fall.
Okay, the next question is this training replacing the clinical data specialist basics and research coordinator basics 1 and 2?
So that's a great question. And no, this training isn't replacing that, because this is really that foundational understanding that all individuals coming into the clinical research job titles need in order to get started with clinical research. Those trainings are more role specific. Again, it kind of says it on the tin, doesn't it? Clinical data specialist or clinical research coordinator. These are more role specific trainings which go into like a little bit more detail about what you're going to do in that specific role. The idea of this training is it really is that foundation to make sure that everyone has that standard foundational level when they get started, and also an understanding of what it means to be a researcher at UT Southwestern and how to navigate the research process. So those trainings will still be available for everyone. We will be reviewing trainings similar to what Rhonda was referring to with HSP and GCP, to ensure that if there is any overlap between the foundations training and other training modules that we have, we want to make sure that we're streamlining and using everyone's time as effectively as possible. But those trainings will definitely still be around, as they're more role specific.
Okay. Are faculty job codes included for this training?
Not as of now, no. It's just those research specific job codes. However, once we launch the training, we definitely hope that faculty will start taking it and find it really beneficial. And that would really be a discussion then for leadership as to whether this is something that they want to ask faculty to take as part of their onboarding. But for now, we're just focusing on the research staff job codes.
Okay. Are the city trainings available now or until mid-July?
So everything will go live on July 10th. So it will all be there in the module on July 10th. The website will be live on July 10th. We'll have the tip sheets. So everything's there ready for you to take as kind of a whole course on July 10th.
Okay. Will this also be helpful for staff that do research at Children's Medical Center?
I mean, I would say absolutely. I think this is really beneficial for all clinical research staff. It's meant to be that foundational level. There are some modules that are more focused on getting your research at UT Southwestern, but a lot of those committees, the resources, the different kind of departments that you need to interact with at UT Southwestern to get your research up and running are also going to be departments that you still interact with when you work at children's, for example, the IRB and things like that. So I think that there is a lot of overlap with that. And then the rest of the foundational piece is really just about being a great clinical research professional, which of course is always relevant regardless of where you work. So I would definitely encourage our affiliate sites to look at this research, to look at this training. Sorry, I think it's beneficial for everyone. It has some really great information.
Thank you. The next question is, will this change the required training for research study personnel listed in EIRB? Currently, only HIPAA, HSP, and good clinical practice are required.
So I think Rhonda might have already answered this to some extent, but I'd like to turn this over to Rhonda again, just for her to speak to that.
So this training, the clinical research coordinator training that Lucy and Sandra have talked about today, will not be a requirement to be listed in EIRB. The HSP and GCP will be required. Actually, the HIPAA module will go away. It's one of the courses that we plan to eliminate from our city requirements. But just to confirm, the clinical research foundations will not be a requirement to be added to a study in EIRB.
Great, thank you both. The next one is, are these trainings required for new hires prior to adding to studies in EIRB?
So I think Rhonda just answered that one. So the answer to that is no.
Thank you.
They're not required.
Okay, thank you. The next one is, please estimate the hours of work associated with the onboarding content.
Yes, so I think Sandra briefly touched on this, but we have a current estimate of it being around 8 to 12 hours total for the onboarding training, but really that depends on the speed in which individuals complete the city training modules. So we have about 4 hours of the locally created video content, and then there are the additional city modules, and people obviously will do those at their own pace. What I would say about this training is we have designed it in such a way that it is online, it is totally self-paced, and it's modular. So the idea with giving the 30-day training window is that you can dip in and out of it. It's something that we know there's a lot that coordinators and research staff have to do when they come on board. We get that, and so we want to make it so that it can be fit around the other requirements, the other trainings, the other pieces that need to be done. So everything's in bite-sized chunks. So, you know, if you just have 20 minutes, you know, one day, then you can watch a video, or you can do a few city modules, and it really isn't going to add too much burden on top of what is already there, as it's self-paced and it's able to be done whenever that is required. The other thing is, of course, what Rhonda was referring to is as they look through the HSP and GCP modules for the IRB, if it's covered in the clinical research foundations, then, you know, that may mean that we're able to reduce some time that would normally be spent on the IRB city training. And so all in all, we think that, yes, this is going to obviously add a little bit of time, but it's not going to be something that is going to be prohibitive to onboarding.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lucy. We're almost close to time, so I'm just going to quickly address a few more questions. Will the training be added to required postdoctoral fellow training? Not as of yet. Again, it's those research job titles, but if it's something that the department wishes to do, then we would obviously be in support of that. Okay. And skipping ahead, is population research project assistant included in the job code list?
I don't believe that it is. We will publish the job code list on the website as part of our Clinical Research Foundations training rollout. So you'll be able to see the list of job codes that are included on the list. However, if it's something that you want to assign because it's something that you feel is important, then anyone can do this. Anyone across the institution can do this training. It's only those job codes that it's currently will be mandated for.
Thank you, Lucy. And I believe you've kind of actually answered a few more questions that I already had. And can you just reiterate one more time more information about the mentorship?
Yes, any questions about the training, any questions about anything that we can do, if you're interested in being a mentor, if you're interested in being a focus group member, any feedback you have, ocr@utsouthwestern.edu. It would be fantastic to hear from you.
Thank you, Lucy.
Okay, well, I think we're at time, so we'd just like to thank you all so much for attending this. If you have any questions, again, just, as I said, reach out to us at ocr@utsouthwestern.edu, but we're very grateful for you attending this, and we're looking forward to rolling out this training at UT Southwestern. Thank you for your time.